I'm sorry, Nick. Nick, what I'm kind of lost on is we're still left with,
Jay, can you hear me?
in regards to the flat earthers, is that you're still speaking of properties of particles, not some other ethereal phenomenon going on when you're discussing how gravity works. We may not know exactly how the particle interactions work, but we do know that there's a particle to particle interaction
Yeah,
ultimately.
we do know you think they're attracted to each other, although they
Nick,
could
The
program
I
it.
question
was
was to Nick.
asking Nick a valid question, and I
Oh, I'm
want to hear
sorry, I didn't
his
know you. I'm
valid
sorry. Go.
answer.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I just missed a bit
Yeah.
of it.
So when we, because you're speaking about with the flat earthers, how to respond, and all I'm saying is, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm on the right track here. We're still talking about fundamental interactions with particles. We simply don't know why those particles behave in that particular way. We're not talking about some other ethereal possible causes of uh, 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 gravity occurring. That's all I'm saying. I certainly don't know. That's why I said it's just a fundamental property of how particles work. But I can't. I'm not sure if you're trying to entertain the possibility that, well, it's not the particles themselves that have anything to do with it. There's other ethereal flat Earth type of possibilities or something.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure exactly what you're asking, but when it
I
comes to
think,
like the
Isn't it?
electro,
Whatever he said, he's going. Whatever he said, right? That's his
hold
question.
on. I can maybe clarify his question. So when we for example when we talk about gravity and we try to explain that this is a phenomena we can observe and we can measure and we can somehow like make a theory out of it and we can predict out of it as well. For example, regarding the Cavendish experiments, some of them say, hold on, the interpretation of that experiment is false or it's not complete because they invoke other phenomena like, let's say, magnetism. Magnetism in their own opinion is that something we can observe, we can measure, and we can explain why it's there in the first place because
right?
of positive and negative charge. So what my friend Flatten Destruction is trying to say, can we convince them that the gravitational pull of mass is a property of matter itself, but we can't explain why it's happening this way?
That's pretty close. Not
And are
that.
you trying to ask like, are all the open possibilities still including these
No,
particles,
no, no,
or
no,
do some of them have
No.
Narnia
no, no, no,
particles
no.
involved?
Look. For here's a good one. Lemon comes in here all the time talking about the ether,
Saying the
right?
science shut
The
out all
ether
that
is
nonsense.
not related. Listen, the ether is not related to the fundamental properties of particles, but he tries to use it to explain gravity. You see what I'm saying? I can't relate how the ether works to how much stuff that I have or what kind of stuff it is. With magnetism, I can relate it to what kind of stuff it is, how those particles are oriented, whether or not those particles are moving in space, how they're moving relative to another. There's a reducible way to explain it all the way to an electron and a proton. I can't do that with gravity up to the point. I can do that with gravity up to the point to where there's a proton and a neutron, and the more of protons and neutrons there are, the more of a bending of space time there is, and the more likely that other protons and neutrons will come towards it. Now, why? I can't explain that at all.
Yeah, no one can.
Right. So,
Yeah,
but
but
that's where I was trying to leave the argument off. Look, guys, I'm not trying to harass the issue. I'm saying to the flat earthers and to the skeptics, that's where the fundamental knowledge is. Okay, not, oh, it just is because it is, or whatever the other guy said earlier, which is you can program it or whatever.
Yeah, well, it's
so
true.
how,
Like as I mentioned, we don't have a fundamental theory of gravity that works at the quantum level, and that's what we do have for electromagnetism. So, like when you go down the line of questioning of asking what is electromagnetism, you can say at a fundamental level it's just an exchange of photons between subatomic particles. We can't do that with gravity yet. We might be able to one day, but that's, as I
But
said,
couldn't
that's
they
something.
harass that? But here's my thing. Couldn't they easily harass and say, well, why do the protons, how can exchanging a proton, a photon from one particle to another cause things to want to go towards each other? They can just endlessly go into that. It's a form of a sea lioning.
like we're trying to establish that gravitational pull is a property of matter, but we can't explain how matter make this effect happen in the first place. We don't have a gauge theory for it. Is there a
Exactly.
way we can establish that it is a property of matter, gravitational pull? Gravitational pull does exist and it's a property of matter, but we don't know why it's happening in the first place. Can we establish this?
I think we should be able to. I think at this point, when it comes to flat Earth discussions, that should be automatic.
Well, I'm glad we resolved all of this.
Hey Zanuck, yesterday when Witsit got slammed, did you capitalize on it? Because I left.
It's almost like taking candy from a baby. The guy is so freaking completely possessed. I don't understand it.
Completely possessed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just denial on top of denial squared. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I think he's been, but you got to remember, I mean not Kimo. Sorry, Zanuck. These guys practice to debate on other issues. They come in here and
Yeah, you can tell they're just very, very versed in debating the strategy, how to call everything logical fallacies.
Right,
I mean,
they're calling up the Trump campaign, going, "Okay, you can use this debate tactic to explain why it's okay to do the BS that you did." You know,
it'd be nice if you just address the actual issue, and try to show that you know something about something rather than just spew nonsense.
you could easily replace flat Earth. You could easily replace gravity with wearing a mask, right? You could easily make that same kind of a illogical argument.
For why masks are good or not good.
Right, that's what they like. You listen to some of these people now out there. They're using the flat Earth argument against particle physics to debunk why masks don't work. I mean, to say why masks don't really work, because they'll say, "Oh, well, it's droplets, not aerosol particles," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's not. That's you're missing the point here. You know, there's a probability involved."
Masks aren't made to help you; they're made to help others.
They're made to help others, but there has to be a mutual. Yeah,
Stop
there's
that noise.
mutuality to it.
In the case of coronavirus, I should say, it's made to help others.
Hey Nick, you were awesome, and honestly, if you're the same guy that's been insulting me for the past like year, you made up for it. I will shut the F up.
Wait a minute, Nick is the person insulting me.
Nick insults.
He's insulting everyone, man.
No, he only insults me because I'm Leo.
No, Nick, Leo, you don't understand.
See, this is interesting because it's difficult for people, because he's obviously fresh from the fire here in physics, and some of us haven't been involved with this for many years, and some have been very specialized in some very general areas for many years. But when we get into these topics that we kind of roll over, especially in classes, and kind of go back and to remember and describe the foundations, what they all mean, and how we can apply them to what we're talking about, this flat Earth thing. It's really difficult, so it's good for him to kind of get in here and keep us on the path, right? We can start straying and start making assumptions and reading articles and taking them out of context, no different than what Quantum Racer does. And this is the problem that he has, I'm sure, with everyone just making these gross generalizations or conclusions based on what you quote line, right? And if you don't know what's behind it, you can lead you astray to the incorrect conclusions. So he's kind of help us.
How did you destroy Witsit then exactly?
Because it was easy. It was, what is a force, and he couldn't answer it.
Or that entropy actually causes things to happen. Like things must behave according to increasing entropy. Entropy doesn't always have to increase. There's nowhere in the law of thermodynamics, second law, where the thermodynamic property called entropy does anything.
I think he was looking at
the
I wanted to ask Rakia when he was here, is there a relationship between the amount of force I put on a gas pedal and the acceleration of the car?
Wait, say that again.
Is there a relationship between the amount
we've got
of pressure I put on the gas pedal and the acceleration of the car?
Of course there is.
No. Depends on the gas pedal. Depends on the relationship between the gas pedal and the throttle mechanism.
But that's the relationship. Zan.
No, we could have
the relationship is complicated.
But then you'd have to prove that or show evidence to that by going to another car and using that same pressure and relating.
Well, it's related to a specific car because, like, obviously the pressure you put on a Porsche 959 compared to a Chevy Nova,
right?
It's different because different horsepower and
Different spring
different
rate.
acceleration rates.
Different spring rates.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So if I put 2 pounds of pressure on a Chevy Nova, it could accelerate to 60 in, let's say, 4 seconds. And I'm just throwing out a number. Whereas a Porsche 959 would do it in 2 seconds.
Right, but
with the same amount of force.
But you could take that a more advanced car and say that if I put 2 pounds of pressure on that spring pedal, because it's all drive-by-wire, and I can actually program it to be at 3/4 throttle or 80% throttle or 90% throttle for that same pressure, and of course the distance it would move according to that spring. So you could program that. So I guess you can't say that pedal pressure relates to anything other than you have to understand.
Right, but what is the
asking that question, I mean, he's not going to know that.
Well, so I just said, I guess I didn't know where you were going with that. I thought maybe you had a gotcha for him. I'm sorry.
It kind of is a gotcha, and I like placing flat earthers like that in a gotcha, like the airplane question. Why is the air that's less dense above the airplane less important than the air that's more dense below the airplane when I jump out?
The medium.
Why do I fall down instead of falling
do
down?
we have a body of evidence to go to, Chris, to get the answer from, like you do?
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah. I'm here, Kimo, for your.
Kimo.
Kimo time. It's 12:15. It's time for eating.
Yeah. So when we have hundreds of years of scientific experiments,
volume of evidence, everyone that's ever jumped out of an airplane has gone down towards the surface of the earth. That is the body of evidence.
It's literally the body of evidence.
The body of evidence.
Like there's bodies, and they're evidently going down.
And these fucking
it's
invisible
a body of evidence in multiple contexts.
So when you ask these
why
questions,
are you such a blue swallowing pill?
Kimo, can I just toot my own horn right quick before you go through your 1 hour routine?
The answer is density.
And Kimo, can you tell him to turn me up because he keeps talking over me?
Has he got you turned down?
Yeah, you need to tell him to turn him up. Or
you
you'll
got
mute him.
Brummy
Because he's just been
turned down.
Flat and destruction house.
Yes, I do.
You all do.
Well,
and you know why? Because none of the moderators.
Just mute him.
Yeah, but then there's going to be
mute flat destruction.
Well, the responsibility is on the moderator.
Well, if you
guys
keep talking about me,
honor your.
Tell him, Kimo.
All right, hold on a second. But flattened. Obviously, there wasn't a mod here before, whatever. But can you kind of unmute?
Turn me up, baby.
Talking, I never get a word in.
No, Leo, no one ever talks over you. Like, I don't even know what he's going on about. Like, you haven't been in here since you've been in here.
Hey, Cypher, you here?
Leo.
Yeah, me.
I can't hear you.
No, I know. Someone must have turned me down.
Well, no, I have you like up above 100%. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, no, I wasn't able to say anything.
You up so I could hear you because I thought you were talking.
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, you've been
just listening quietly.
You've been muted.
Now I need to
and
back
the
down.
reason why you were muted, not mutant, not a mutant.
Mutant.
You're not a mutant, mutated. Just been muted.
Thank you, Thank you for recognizing Kimo.
The reason I think flattened is because I did kind of ask you, kind of up a little, just so you could hear when obviously, and then not that much.
I mean, the thing I like about Brumi that he's so obnoxious, he's so crazy, and he can avoid getting muted. You know, he's super smart in those kind of things.
Bro, sometimes I'm gonna laugh. I have a bit of fun. But nice guy, you know.
I know. You're doing it now, dude. You're doing it now again.
Every time I talk, apparently I'm trolling. I can't get away. Every
time funny is that it's not even about him being smart. It's about the bias. Okay.
All right. No, it's not. Look, Flan. I will happily debate. Yeah.
He didn't even ask me. He just asked me if I did it, and then he muted me.
Yo, Flan. Oh, is he got me muted still?
I don't know.
Flan, can you hear me?
Are you here, Flattened?
Yeah, I'm here.
So you can't hear me?
Oh, we hear you. Don't worry about
No,
that.
we can't. No, but Flatten can't hear me, and neither can
Ron is
Leo.
another person you would want
Well,
to
he's
talk
not
to,
talking
'cause
when
he-
you're talking, Brummy, so I think he can hear you.
Yeah, Leo, do you have a
I'm just
filter
ignoring him, so I can't
Well,
get muted
no,
before
yeah,
I
ignoring
thought
him.
you were. But hold on,
Yeah.
Chris, have you got Brummy turned down?
Yes, I turned him down because he keeps on talking over everybody.
Okay, so
No, I don't, bro. Just fucking get over it,
Brummy,
mate.
hold
It's
on a
an hour ago.
second. So, Chris, can you kind of please turn Brummy up a little bit, so you can.
Okay, now hurry up and mute Chris before he gets a chance to do it, like you did with me.
Well, no,
What the fuck, man?
I'm just asking him if he's going to do it or not.
All right.
Right, but you asked me and then you muted
Thanks,
me.
thanks, Leo. Thanks, Leo. I just want to be able to talk well and not have to keep asking people to stop talking while I'm trying to say something as well. Because you guys aren't the only ones who want to talk. You know what I mean? We all want to contribute to the room, so just turn people up and don't talk when they talk. And I
Shut
won't
up.
do
My
it.
turn to talk now.
No worries. Yes, sir. Let's go, Zanik.
Just kidding.
So
We're
I
talking
have
about-
question. I have question for just to like clarify things. So Kimo, yesterday you said Widget destroyed us. Can you give me the points again that Widget did or said yesterday that actually destroyed us?
Falsification.
Substantive specificity.
Yeah, all of that.
Because falsification is independent of
Specificity.
replacement. That's why.
So
Do
Alpha
you
male,
understand this concept, Brumi? I bet you don't.
so
Yeah, I do
Alpha
understand.
male Witsit
But
had,
I understand
destroyed
Witsit
us.
probably more better than any of you Globers do.
Why
Do
would
you understand?
Why would he use terms like entropy so incorrectly to describe some reason why pressure would move from high to low? Why would he use the second law of thermodynamics to do that, Jeremy?
Because entropy is like the gases will continue to fill the available space.
No, that's not entropy,
So we
though. But it's not. I'm
Yeah,
glad
but
we
it
can
is,
talk
though,
about it
isn't it?
without. I'm glad we can
The
talk
way-
about it without.
Right.
I'm glad we can talk about it without other people jumping
You
in.
go first, and I'll
Be calm,
respond.
and let's just get this down. So you become an arbiter of truth for us. So let's talk about that. Entropy doesn't
No
mean
worries.
that at all. Why do you think that?
Right. The way I look at entropy is if you've got two gases separated by a container, a wall, and then you remove that wall in between the two gases, the gases will mix a bit like when you pour milk into your coffee. They will mix and they'll mix spontaneously, and that's like entropy.
Well, that's not entropy either. You're using mixing, diffusion with the pressure, high pressure moving to a low pressure. So which is it? We're going to talk about a vacuum.
I'm just saying, if you've got two gases, right, and then
two gases. Well, that's not entropy.
That was your time to talk, Xanix. That wasn't your time to talk.
No, we're talking about mixing.
Pressure equilibrium is not.
Entropy is about how things mix, right?
No,
how
it's
things
not.
mix. Yeah, it is.
But no, it's not. Absolutely it's not.
You explain, Xanix. You give me your definition of it.
Okay, it's not my definition. So you gave me your interpretation, which is wrong. I'll give you what
it's
it
not,
is.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong.
No, it is wrong because you can't find that quote anywhere.
I can literally get a video up now and explain to you entropy of the way that things mix, and we call it entropy. That's how things mix.
Bruno,
Yes.
forgot about the
No, that's not true. Why would you think that?
Xanix, go on. Just explain yourself.
Okay, I'll give you the explanation then. So entropy is a measure of the energy unavailable to do work in a system. That's what it is. And it's usually there's two ways to do that. There's a Clausian and then there's the Boltzmann techniques. Or
keep going. You need to finish the definition.
So entropy. So you got the first part, and so if it's Boltzmann, it's more statistical. It's more about a number of microstates. And my namesake is talking about that. If you look at my name. Now the other way is a change of entropy, looking at a partial derivative or a infinitesimal change in heat with respect to temperature. That's the other way. Now, both are true and correct. They're both very different ways of looking at entropy. That is
exactly.
So that doesn't talk about.
I'm not
mixing.
wrong. You're just looking at it a different way. You're about the energy part of it. I'm on about. Hold on.
Did you mention lack of order?
I'm almost done. If I have two gases, let's say I have nitrogen and hydrogen, or nitrogen and oxygen, and I open that barrier between the two chambers and they mix, does the entropy change? No, of course not. If the temperature,
the order changes.
No, the order didn't change.
You didn't mention disorder or order in any. No, I'm saying in your definition, You didn't mention disorder or order
Because
at all.
disorder is more of a kindergarten version of entropy.
Yeah, which is mentioned in every.
Yeah, because it's very
definition.
easy to understand. I use it occasionally too when I'm
I'm
talking about
not sure
some
why you
physics.
leave it out.
All right,
Because
Xanax.
because it's not technically correct.
Right, Zanek, you're gonna have to stop this hot micing while you're talking. This clicking.
It's
tapping.
not.
Give it a quick try.
It's not technically correct.
Give
I
me
gave you
30
the
seconds.
technical correct definition.
Just give me 30 seconds.
So the number of microstates or a change of temperature, a change of heat divided by temperature in a reversible process.
So now we've heard Xanax's version of his definition.
So can I get one last comment?
Xanax.
No, man, you just go on for too long.
I want to give an
you
example.
really make the Xanax, just shut up.
I want to
Can
give
you
the
mute him,
most
please? Can you
common
mute him?
example.
Fucking shut up, Xanax.
Can I
Just
talk
shut
about the most
up,
common
man.
example?
You
It'll be
don't need to
quick.
go on that
If you
long,
were
bro.
flat
No, it's about-
destruction, you
it's
would have been
about
muted
gas
by
in the
now.
chamber.
Fucking hell, like Xanax, just relax, bro. You don't really need to go into some super fucking detail. The way you're looking at it is like energy. What I'm saying is the way that gas particles behave, and obviously, for example, a pressurized system or pressurized gas will always go to low pressure. Why does it do that? It's not force pushing it out. It's just that the gases will mix and like that's just how they work. That's how it works. In the video I posted, it explains it in a very simple, digestible way. In fact, so I didn't need anyone talking then. I'm not going to have to talk for half an hour like Xanax did. I'm done. No, I'm done. I'm done.
Here it is. So the key part, entropy, is the ability for particles to disperse to such a degree that there's no energy transfer between them. You can't transfer energy from one area to another because the dispersal of the particles is so uniform and random that there's no differential in energy potential from one part to the other in that system.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Yo, so there's the Big Bang, right? Have you guys ever seen like those little art splashes where it's like a little clay ball and it like
you're talking about entropy though, yeah.
Yeah, think about it, right? So the clay ball like splashes out into a little puppy, or it's like an ink blotch or an ink ball, and then it zooms back into the ball again. Then it splashes back out to like a tree, and then it zooms back in to the ball, and then it splashes back out to like a shark. You know what I'm saying? So think about that like the Big Bang, right? Like
we're talking
the Big
about
Bang explodes.
Come on,
and then I'm not done. 2 more seconds, and then mass attracts mass. So even though everything's expanding right now because it's got the energy right now, right? It's gonna mass to mass and entropy.
Why are you
back
doing
together,
this?
45
and it's
seconds,
gonna come back to a Big
Kimo,
Bang,
can you get him
and
out of
it's gonna keep
conversation?
busting. It's
You're
gonna
not
keep
talking about
busting,
the
Xanax.
conversation.
Bro, get out of the conversation, bro. Don,
You
Don,
said
No,
the
there's
energy.
nothing
Don, you're pissing on the
It
conversation,
can never
bro.
You're at 1
happen, so
minute.
the
You're at
energy's
1
always
minute
going to
now.
be able to do
No,
work.
no,
The energy
No.
will
Don,
always
you're
do
off
the
key.
work
You're
because
off key,
the
bro.
mass
You're way
is
off
going to
track.
clash mass on the mass.
No.
Then it's going to
You're way off
explode
track,
You're
again.
at
bro.
1 minute and 15 seconds.
Yeah, but I
Everyone
waited an
disagrees with
hour.
your explanation.
Well, we're all waiting.
Look, flat destruction. Flat destruction. Flat destruction. I rate your explanation, to be honest. It was quite accurate. And that's pretty much the same thing I'm talking about with the second law of thermodynamics.
No, the difference is that you have to acknowledge
Yes.
the lack of energy that can be the fact that energy cannot be transferred one part of the system to the other. That's the most important part.
The most important part is that gases will always seek to fill the available space. That's the part that I'm talking about.
That has to do with pressure equilibrium. That's not entropy.
You have to do
Can I give you the example I was trying to give earlier?
No, why don't you let someone else give it a try?
Well, everyone refers to the bromine container in the video. I think maybe bromine. You're talking about this, maybe bromine?
Yeah, that's the video, the one I uploaded. Yeah.
So that's not two gases. That's one gas. That's bromine in a container with a door into a vacuum, and he opens the door, and there's a free expansion of this gas into both containers, and there's no change in temperature. Yet, and there's no change in energy, yet the entropy has gone up. And that's the example. Now, there's problems with that if you want to look at it really accurately. The problem is that there's no free expansion because the gas has weight. So it can be doing some work. So it's not free. And it's not an isolated system because it's
going to be a perpetual Big Bang. And you guys, because of entropy.
Hold on.
Shut up, man. God, this isn't necessary right now.
Please. So it's not isolated. So that means I could actually have heat lamps around this chamber, and energy can move into that system. So the whole system is just a analogy, or it's just an example to what they're talking about. Talk about entropy. It's a great example.
All right. You've made your point. You've made your point, man. Don't waffle on. All right, man. I totally agree with you. I think Xanax, you was right that I may have misinterpreted the two gases as one being vacuum, and then that's how it behaved. But like you said, it's a vacuum, so it's attracted to vacuums, and we are surrounded by a vacuum, and a vacuum so large that it would render the gravitational barrier irrelevant. Gravity is a very weak force. It can be defied by static electricity. Gas molecules are very anti-gravity. Hold on, let me finish the statement. Let me finish the statement, please. We are a grain of sand on a football-sized pitch of vacuum, and you're trying to tell me that this little gravity, this little bit of gravity can hold down all this gas.
Little gravity that is proportional, a force that gets developed that is proportional to the mass. So the greater the mass, the greater that force. That's what gravity works, and inversely proportional to the distance between them.
Okay, so how does gravity? Hold on, short flatten. One sec, flatten. How does the gravity have such a large force on independent gases? Because gases are independent. They ain't got tight molecular bonds.
Okay, let me respond.
It doesn't matter that they're independent. It matters that
it does matter because it's not pulling down a solid or a liquid.
I have a simple answer for you. The mass of that particle, whether it be a small one, a molecule, an atom, or a car, the mass is attracted to the larger mass near it, the Earth. And that
but they're independent, bro. So
that force is proportional.
You're not listening. You're not listening.
That mass is proportional to its distance to the other.
It's still independent. Independently, it's got no effect on gravity. No, listen to what I'm saying. You're talking again. Every time I talk, you don't listen. Danix, just listen. It's not the ocean. The ocean would probably have a larger gravitational pull because it's all like one big glue. Because it's massive, it's acting as one mass. But you can fucking put all the oxygen in the air you want. It's not going to act as one big balloon of oxygen because it's not contained. So it's going to act independently. So you're never going to have a large.
Jesus, man.
All right.
Xanax, you got to learn to listen, bro.
Broomy, just chill for a second. So, this whole flat Earth point about what causes things to fall down overlooks something. I just realized it. You're talking about entropy and how there's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics in the globe model. But there's a problem. And the problem is that you still acknowledge that things fall towards the Earth for some reason. You can call it relative density if you want, but it is still sufficient. It is still sufficient to explain why there would be a vacuum in space.
Yep. I agree.
If air has weight, it's going to be pressing down towards.
Man, can you give a moment?
I agree, Flatten.
I want one. There's a bigger problem. Every scientist that talks about entropy believes the Earth is a sphere. So they can't even use scientists who talk about entropy as a go-ahead to accept their definition of entropy.
Yeah, with believes.
Oh, wait a minute.
Being the key word there.
And knows the Earth is a sphere.
No, I get it. Yeah. That's why they try to make entropy about gas and not about energy.
The key thing here.
All right, but every scientist that knows about the gas laws also accepts that the Earth is a sphere.
Well, every scientist knows the Earth is a sphere. But the point is, flatten, real quick. Entropy is the second law of thermodynamics is about heat movement. It's about the direction.
Remember, he said real quick. He said real quick. Remember.
Yeah, real quick. It's about the direction of heat. It's not about pressure differentials or high pressure movement, low pressure. Those are Newtonian aspects.
Wait, are you telling me this? Are you telling this?
No, because you keep on bringing up about. No, I'm just making sure you understand too that it's not about high pressure, low pressure.
Listen to me.
I didn't say.
I know that. I said that. I said that it has. I'm saying to you, is that entropy has to do with the transfer of energy throughout a system and an equilibrium of energy, not an equilibrium of gas.
It's not about transfer of energy either.
Oh, Lord. Look, Xanax.
No, I'm just
in a high entropy system, there is such a balance of energy throughout the entire. Listen, yes, throughout the entire system, the one part of that system to the other. Okay.
No, that's
the
not
amount of energy. The amount of energy is evenly dispersed.
It's not a balance of heat. It's not a balance of energy. It's not
all right,
that. It's about it's about the energy that's available or unavailable to do work.
You can't call energy being available.
It's basically just pressure mediation.
Gibbs-free energy. Gibbs-free energy is the energy that's available to do work, and entropy is the measure of the energy that's unavailable to do work. Now, the energy in the system doesn't change.
Energy can't be available if it can't be transferred, Zanuck. You can't transfer if you're trying to tell me
potential energy.
Voltage is the same, right? Voltage is the same thing. You can't tell me that you have a high voltage when you have two endpoints that have the same voltage. You can't say that's a high voltage. There's no voltage between them because the 2 points have the same voltage. That's not entropy, but that's just an analogy to it. What I'm trying to get across
is it's a bad analogy because you
wait a minute.
Let him finish. Because in an open system,
hold on, you can have
Zanuck, in an open system like the universe, what you have is an infinite amount of space, and therein lies the disagreement, if you will, or the nitpicky little argument. Is the fact that
the universe is a closed system.
Zanuck, I'll stop.
Isolated system.
Hey, guys! I apologize for interrupting.
I see it. We see it.
Good, thanks for that. Listen, I want to get back to this part. Hold on. Before you hijack the conversation. Before you hijack the conversation, I had a lot to say. Before you hijack the conversation, I had a lot to say.
Look, don't panic.
Look,
but here's Zanuck.
Zanuck wanted to know, right, about fucking the ocean. I mean, the oxygen and why air isn't being held down by gravity. Flat Destruction wanted to know about the relative density argument, and I think Leia was asking something about that. Basically, just because the people that invented entropy, therefore we can't use it because they are globe believers. Like that's absolutely ridiculous for a start of that one. So that's debunked. Secondly, lighter things going up and heavier things going down. We don't subscribe things to going down through gravity when we can see that gases have gases are free and independent from gravity, so it's not causing things to be pushed up by the buoyancy of the gases being pulled down.
But gases aren't independent of gravity.
No, that wasn't a time for interruption. I'm addressing everyone's point one by one. And then the third,
you interrupted these. That's bullshit, Brummy.
Oh, come on, dude.
Yeah, whatever. So Zanuck,
let him recap.
Third point I want to address for you was you're saying that the large body of masses become more gravitational pull. Yes, I think it's okay with the ocean. The larger the ocean is, the more gravitational pull to the Earth. But I don't think that's the same when it comes to the gas, because gases, when they separate in the air, they become they're independent. And they'll never work as a collective.
No.
So the gravity will never pull the whole. Don't interrupt me. Let me finish. I don't think the whole gravity will pull down the entire atmosphere. Thank you very much. I rest my case.
Okay, so that's not true, actually. Just because they're moving in all directions, they're not influenced by gravity. Every mass, anything that has mass, will be affected by gravity. So these objects that are moving up and down and all over, the little particles, these oxygen molecules, they will have a velocity that is always greater going down. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm arguing already.
That's why, even though they're not connected like this coulombic bonding of a liquid, that's why they actually can be weighed in a container, because their impact
in a container.
Hold on. Don't latch onto the container.
I'm sorry.
Please. That's why the container will have more weight, because the impacts on the bottom of the container, inside the bottom, will be registering the force on the scale. Yes, it's in a container, but don't grab onto that friggin' thread. All we're trying to
let me reply then.
All we're trying to explain.
Before I get the points, because you just said a lot.
Come on,
finish. I let you finish. I let you finish. Let me finish real quick. All we're trying to explain is that these molecules have a higher velocity going down because of gravity, and that force imparted on the object or the air gives it weight.
Right. So you said when you contain gases, they have weight. Yes, no one's disputing that, but you have to contain them to make them to work as a one.
On your scale.
So weight is just
Let me finish. Hold on. Let me answer him. Like, when you contain the gas, right, they're going to have more pressure gradient at the bottom, because what happens is all the molecules.
Hey, you three, how about you show a bit of respect for other people in the room, guys? You three have been going on like fuck, and none of you have covered anything. It's all the same shit. Shut up, you selfish pricks, or fuck. Jesus.
Thanks for interrupting him to say that.
Thanks very much, Boomer.
We've been hearing
so when you contain gases, right? When you contain gases, it's like holding a bottle of water. A bottle of water will have higher pressure at the bottom, but it's not because of gravity. It's because there's more molecules at the top of it, right? And obviously, heavy things have a directionality of down. So when you have a contained gas, it's going to have a bias to going down, and it's going to create that pressure differential, and that's why helium balloons do have a greater pressure at the bottom, and that's why. But at the end of the day, you're just subscribing gravity to everything, which is not the case. I forgot your first point because you was going on so fucking long. I couldn't reply to you. So if you'd like to repeat the premise, the first problem you had was some old addressed it, but I forgot what it was.
Yeah, it was a bit of a gish gallop.
No, it wasn't. It was about all molecules, all mass having.
That was it. The whole atmosphere isn't working as one, mate. They're independent, and as you said, hold on. You said very clearly that the bigger the mass, the bigger the force. But remember, gas molecules and gas particles are independent. They're independent. They will never have a large body of mass. They will never get stronger.
What I'm thinking I'm hearing from them,
so
is
a gas molecule in motion will remain in motion until acted by force.
Take a breath.
Let me see if I got this right.
Oxygen has a higher
so they do
weight.
act in one as gravity acts on all of them, but then they also act relative to each other, the gases, which gives two actions, which why the confusion.
Oxygen has more weight than helium. Oxygen has more
so they
weight than
all
helium,
weigh
period.
particularly something, and they all go in one particular direction alone, but in retrospect or in relative to each other, they'll expand and act differently. Am I right in saying that? Because of their covalent or non-reactive bonds, the movement, like the Joule-Thomson effect or the kinetic theory of gas expansion in a vacuum.
You talking to Xanax or me?
Well, the room.
What was you saying, mate?
I think what I'm hearing from them is that it acts as one in as far as how gravity acts on them. But the reason you're seeing these other reactions that you're describing, how there's free expansion, all that kind of stuff, is basically because they also act relative to the outside environment as well. So at one point, one overcomes the other, but there's this area where they kind of escape and return. It's like a
they all have weight, and the greater the mass, the greater that weight, and the greater that velocity going down.
How do you have a greater atmosphere that's filled up of independent molecules, independent gases? How do you have a large body of mass?
Listen, the velocity for all these gases will be the same, but it'll be.
He's not answering the question.
Over me. He's got to stop.
You're not answering. No, you're not answering my question. Answer my question.
The velocity is going down. It's going up. Listen.
He's not answering my
more
question.
Mass, it'll provide more force on what it makes contact with. And yes,
how does independent gas molecules
equally
how
going
does
down?
independent gas molecules?
Romy, you're talking over me again. Just
answer my question.
The respect I gave you. Just give me the
answer my question.
Please give me the respect I gave you. Real quick.
Give him a second.
Please, you too. The velocity.
He's not answering my question.
We all know the acceleration is going down. The mass being greater gives it a greater force going down, and that's what creates the pressure, the air pressure you experience on Earth. Can you get
come on,
man. How does independent gas molecules?
Why aren't you muting him by now?
Because I'm asking him the same question 15 times.
You're like.
But
listen, bro.
Listen.
Like,
how does the independent gas molecules? How does independent gas molecules work as one?
And
Tell me.
The moderators for not doing
that. Don't work
Just shut up, Flatten.
This is his room. This is Broomies' room.
Xanax, explain to me how independent gas molecules work as one.
You're Broomy for a second.
Yeah, now that Xanax said it won't happen. Damn.
Jesus Christ.
Answer the question.
They don't
answer my question with specificity.
You're answering the question. I'm going to give you specificity, and I'm going to give you substantive specificity as well. Listen,
give me some specificity, sir.
I will give you the specificity. Listen, the gases are moving in all directions. Their velocities are greater going down than up, and the mass of them will determine the force that they create as they go down and make impact, or as they make any impact in.
Okay, so that was what I was hearing.
In any environment. So that's why you have pressure. The pressure is the collision between those molecules. The greater the mass, the greater the collision, the greater the force. They're all.
So how do they work together?
The velocities are greater going down, so they pile up and those impacts create the force, which is called pressure.
So how
There's
do
one
the
more thing,
independent
Xanax. The
gas
initial
molecules
force
work
from
together?
the impact.
They don't work together.
Exactly.
Xanax, there's
So
the
the,
initial
gra-
They don't
so
work
the
together. They're
gravity
all
isn't going to be
independent.
larger, is
They're
it?
all making independent collisions.
Thank you. I rest my
randomly.
case. I win. I win.
No, you're wrong though,
You
Brimmy.
don't win.
Brimmy,
You don't get
you're
it.
not.
You're freaking lost.
Right.
I won. Easy.
So by them all acting independently, from an outside perspective, looks like they're all working together to create pressure.
What?
But they're
That's
not
a
actually
contradiction.
technically working together because they're not
Exactly.
attracted to each other. They're
All right,
attracted to the
Grim.
larger mass.
Grim, let me
That's what
explain
he's
to you,
saying.
Grim. Let me explain to you. That, like, he's saying that when the larger the body of mass, the larger body of mass works with a larger body of gravity pull on them. So if they're independent, how are they working as one unit? They're not. They're separate units. So
No,
that
he's
all the
not
separate
saying
units
they
are
are.
having.
He's not saying they are.
isn't, no.
He's saying they're
What
all
did
being
he explain?
independently acted upon by gravity. So,
But they're not
if you-
working. They're not working
but you
together to
observe
make a
it from
collective
outside
weight.
the system,
They're not
it
making a
looks like-
collective weight.
Wait a minute.
Well, no,
That's not a collective weight.
No,
That's
it
not
is,
a
because
collective weight.
What you're doing, listen, Brummy, because then what you do is you don't just weigh one molecule. What you do is you weigh a cubic area, or you know what I mean, so that you can then determine the difference. You don't just weigh one molecule because you're weighing pressure. It takes more than one molecule to measure that.
So how do you have gas pressure when it's not contained?
These are about collisions. And you're having a lot of collisions.
You're
at a
not getting
lower
it, bro.
altitude.
You're not getting it.
I think you're not getting it.
No. The ocean's a liquid.
You're not getting it. Clearly.
The ocean's a liquid, right? The ocean has a downward vector. I agree with that.
Gravity's
Water
the
has a downward
container.
vector. Water has a downward vector. You don't get it.
Together. Isn't our body
I just want to tell you that internet IQ test lied to you.
Water has a downward vector. Rocks and solids have a downward vector. Gases omnidirectional.
Why does water
they have a downward vector as well? They have a downward vector as well. Absolutely.
Hey guys, why does water lose its downward vector when it turns into a gas? Broomy, why does water lose its downward vector when it turns
Because
into a gas?
it changes state and becomes a gas.
Exactly, you fucking idiot.
Atomic bonds are broken.
Is water vapor a gas or water?
Because it's independent.
There's still a molecule.
Independent molecules.
There's still a molecule of water.
But they're independent. They're not fucking.
What causes
They're
the change
independent
of
molecules.
state?
Oh, I'm having a breakdown here. They're independent. Do you know what independent means?
What causes
Do you know what independent means?
They're
Do you know
not
what independent means?
They
Do
are
you know what
absolutely
independent
not
means?
You guys
You know what
need to take a
independent
walk
is?
around the
That
block.
can
or
be
something.
But they are
proven.
independent.
You tell him it's not independent to do nothing. You have
Yes,
to
they
have
are.
a force.
Yes, they are.
They have a
Yes, they
vector
are.
down. Every molecule.
No, they don't. They're
have
omnidirectional.
a vector
Gases are
down.
omnidirectional.
But he doesn't agree
Gases
with
are
that.
omnidirectional.
So the question becomes,
Not omnidirectional. It's called a vector.
why does water change its state? I'm sorry, why does water change its state?
It's not omnidirectional. It's not omnidirectional. It has a vector down.
Calm down. We get it, man. We know it. Yeah. So what does one molecule do?
When you fart, why is it going to your nose?
One gas molecule goes
down. Do you not understand how that works?
omnidirectional?
When you fart, why is it going to your nose?
Because a lot of little straight lines bump into each other.
Right.
It goes in all directions.
I've been trying to get a question.
When you open a bottle of pop, why does it disperse in all
Do I get a
directions?
question in? Hey, Brummy.
Yeah, go on.
Go ahead,
How about
Boomer.
a question in?
Would you say that all the molecules in our body are working together?
No, let Boomer.
Where's your container, Brummy? Where's your container, Brummy?
All right.
Where's your
How about
container?
for you? Can I have the floor for like 5 seconds? 5 seconds. When I hit a baseball, when I hit a baseball, what is the directional vector and what is the force vector? Do you know the difference, Broomy?
That's pretty good. 6
Come on, I had a
Yes or
question.
no?
He stole it. Brummy, what's the container? What's the container?
Where's my
You can't
container?
put it-
I asked
Where's
the
my
question.
container?
I expect an answer.
Where's your container? Where's your container?
When I hit
Where's
a
your
baseball,
container?
what's the directional vector?
Gravity.
What is the
When the
force
globe
vector?
is dead and the
Hey,
gas
Boomer,
is
what's your
free, it's
question?
gravity. When your globe is dead and your gas goes out, it's going to stay.
Boomer,
The
what's your
gravity
question?
holds everything down.
Gentlemen, please mute Broomy. This is getting, he's drunk and out of control.
I'm not even drunk. I ain't had a drink. I'm just
kind of
shut
hilarious,
up.
I asked you, what's the directional vector? What's the force vector on a baseball when I hit it? When I hit a baseball, or a cricket ball, whatever you fucking do over there, and England.
But Boomer had a question. Why don't we listen to his question for a moment?
Fucking
What
mad.
type of it depends on what type of socks you're
When I
wearing.
hit a cricket ball, what's the direction? What's the force vector on the cricket ball when I hit it?
What type of socks are you
Hey,
wearing, Zan?
Zanny, you were going to be 5 seconds. That was over a minute ago. How about you just breathe, have a deep breath,
No, he
and maybe
wrapped up
give
his
someone
last
the room.
statement in 6 seconds.
Good advice.
Stanix, you fucking idiot.
Question
Balls
for
are
you.
not fucking
There you go.
gases.
Now this
Okay.
dickhead jumps in.
Solids are
See how both of
gases.
you kill the room?
Hey, you know what?
Okay,
I'm gonna go into
right.
Lael's room. If y'all want to come and we can talk about it without them,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Bye.
Here's my question for you, Brummy.
Bye.
What is the container?
Well, it can
container,
probably be gravity, or it can be the necessary antecedent, as in some sort of barrier holding in the gases. That's what
is it?
That's what the container is.
What would cause the pressure?
I've explained it.
What is it?
What is it?
What is it?
What's yours?
Mine's gravity. That's my container.
Exactly.
Yours, what's your
Yours is an invisible,
but that-
unprovable. Yours is an invisible. Yours is an invisible, unprovable force. Yeah, but yours is listen to what you're saying. Yeah, I have an invisible. You have an invisible, unprovable force. So do I.
Now what?
So you admit that it's invisible and unprovable?
Now whip out
Sorry?
your force. I'll whip out my force. And let's measure forces.
Yours is an invisible, undetectable, unprovable force. Mine is the same.
No, I asked what yours was. You couldn't answer it. It's invisible. Thank you.
I told
Good
you,
job.
it's a container.
Stuck.
It's a container, bro. It's the same as yours. It's invisible. You can't see it. You have to believe it's there. Otherwise, it's a violation of second law of thermodynamics. Simple. Job done.
Checkmate.
You know what I'm saying? You've got an invisible force, and you're going mad at me because I can't prove to you about this dome. I can't prove to you no dome or container or whatever. It's an antecedent.
Stop trolling, Brumi. You're smarter than this.
I'm not trolling, bro. I'm being serious.
You're trolling, bro. You're being
It's a
trolling.
little of both. It's a little of both.
I'll be
But
trolling.
it's
All right, I'm
hilarious.
trolling. All right, then I'm trolling because you said I'm trolling. At the end of the day, man, like, look, gases are independent, man. And Xanix knows it, and even said it himself. Yeah, you need the masses need to be when the larger the mass, the larger the gravitational pull. But how can you have larger mass that are independent things? One gas molecule will always attract if gravity is real, for example, one gas molecule will always have the same attraction to the Earth's magnetic field, real. Which is. Let me finish. But let's say it's true. Helium, for example, every helium molecule will always go up. And it will always beat the force of gravity. So even if you put fucking so much of that helium together, it would never stop going up and start going down because there's so much gas together, will it?
Yeah, no, I'm not wrong. One simple statement that you're violating in everything you're saying. It's called the uniformity of nature.
That's good. It's a lovely word. Go on then.
If you're saying, let me ask you just what: do you accept the fact that a gas is matter?
Yeah.
Fine. Then you're violating the uniformity of nature, because if you're saying that a rock has a downward vector, if you're saying that an object has a downward vector, and they're all composed of matter, then why is it that you're having a problem with gas?
Because certain matters have certain values, and when that matter becomes to a certain a lightness, like a gas or like helium,
lightness is nothing. It's like lightness.
Well, you stop me off from explanation. You asked me for an explanation, and then
when you're
stop me.
inserting stupid words in there, I'm going to call you on it.
Well, when it's light relative to other parts of matter, when the value gets light relative to other matters, there's a certain value that when things will have an upwards attraction. When it gets past that point, it will always have a downward attraction. But let's not forget.
Can you repeat that again?
When it gets to a certain point, they will have a downward attraction. For example, liquids and solids.
What?
Slowly, Brumi, slowly.
Brumi, I'm gonna tell you. You make half statements. I make
observational statements
and incomplete thoughts. You string them together with just a whole bunch of words out. It's
empirical evidence. When I look in the world, right? When I look at the world, in the natural world,
a very, I would I'm gonna be like generous and say you have a liberal you have a decent understanding of physics. I was being very generous. But the problem is you don't have enough to actually really understand what's going on. You string these phrases together, and which is why most of us keep telling you, Brummy, you're talking nonsense.
Lovely.
So if we can get off the ad hom and off of Broomy and the personal stuff.
No, that's not an ad hom.
Nonsense is not an ad hom.
That's not an ad hom.
No, it's not an ad hom. I didn't say this.
I didn't say
your argument is crap because of this.
You're being generous when you say he has a slight You're being
nonsensical. Telling someone they have a nonsensical
argument.
Brummy knows I'm ad homming him.
Maybe back to the argument.
Rocky, you don't even understand what the definition
Maybe back to the argument. Maybe
don't
kill
him a vote and go take
I've heard you, Brummy,
you're horrible.
Like, listen, rocket scientist.
Regardless of what
listen, rocket scientist. What I have, right, is empirical evidence that I observe outside.
Brummy, no, you don't.
I go outside. Listen. Let me finish.
No,
you've spoken enough about me. You've spoken enough about me. Now hear my testimony. When I go outside, I see rocks on the ground level. Well, above the rocks, I see water rest
on the ground.
I see water resting on the rocks. I see water resting on the rocks, and what do I see above the water? I see steam. I see steam, and then I see condensation, and then I see gases above the clouds. I see all. I've got the vision. I see the gradient that we live in. So to me, gases will go at the top, and rocks will go at the bottom, and water will also lay just on top of the rocks. So when I say that light things go up, I mean gases. When I see that heavy things go down, I say water, liquids, and solids. That's my gradient. That's my observation of the real world that I live in. It's empirical.
That's why in the fish tank, the rocks are on the
like
bottom.
You're asking a question.
And if you put gas in the bottom, it goes to the top and goes out into the air. It's the natural gradient. It's just the way things are, man. Get used
All right, Rock, yeah. Explain to me why the rock will accelerate at a certain velocity.
Hey, for you, no.
You finish your statement. You're
For
stating
no.
this, fine, but you can't tell me what its actual motion is going to be. You can't tell me how fast that gas is going to accelerate up.
I can tell you if you drop a rock in water, it's going to go to the bottom. I can tell you that.
Did you understand what I said, though?
Yes.
You
Does
can't
it
tell me
matter
how
what
fast
speed it
will
does?
do that.
Does it matter what speed?
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Well, not
because
to me,
if that's the case, submarines. Because you're telling me that it doesn't matter how a submarine moves up or down.
A submarine does that by ballast with air and water.
Exactly.
Gas and exactly. So when it's out of equilibrium, it will float. And when it increases its air mass, it will go
you
higher.
Can't tell me how if I blow the ballast by this much, how fast I'll get up.
Why do I need to tell you that?
Or sorry, you blow it out, you'll go down.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that.
Why
you
do
can
I
tell me
need to tell you
direction,
that?
but you cannot tell me acceleration or velocity.
It loves predictions.
No, I love it because you
I
need to
promise
step up
you,
with a better explanation.
you fill that submarine with water, it will go straight to the bottom, sir.
But you can't tell me how fast.
Who cares?
Oh, God.
Because every fucking any sailor who's sitting there on the submarine cares.
Well, yeah, and they have to know. I don't. I just know it will. That's why I know don't fill it with water.
Recognize you made a half. It's a half thought. It's a half statement.
No.
Do you tell me how you're going to design a submarine just with that?
I know when a boat starts to sink because it's got too much water. I need to pump that water out. That's all I need. I don't need to know what
fast
rate.
is it going to sink?
I need to know. I need to pump it out faster than what it's coming in.
That's not good enough.
Oh, it's not?
It's not.
Oh, I'll tell you what. It'll be good enough for that submarine. It will sink. I promise.
No, see, Rocky, here's the thing.
No, see,
I can't.
No matter how many formulas you put to it.
Okay, stop yelling, you nitwit.
No matter how many formulas you put to it, no matter how much you know, if too much water gets in there, it's going to sink.
Okay, tell me how I'm going to take that and use that in an engineering design. How am I going to calculate that? How am I going to make sure that ship is going to float and not sink?
Definitely can be used. Yeah, definitely can be calculated. Yeah, congratulations.
How?
Calculation.
If you build a rubber
They
floaty.
did the calculation after they figured out it would happen by looking at a rock.
You have no clue what you're talking about.
Sure I do. They measure the density.
Give me the equation. Give me the formulation of relative density that lets me calculate whether a ship's going to float by how much, or a submarine's going to stay in equilibrium, whether it's going to sink or accelerate.
Would that change the fact? Would any formula change the fact that a rock would fall to the bottom of water?
You don't understand. You don't understand. There is
I don't
Newton's laws of
understand.
motion, which are established. If you want to replace that with relative density, give me something to work
rock
with.
Floating in
It's
water.
not enough, Rakia.
Oh, it seems to be enough for that
You
rock.
do not have enough.
It seems to be enough for nature.
It's not enough for any engineer or
Well, it
technician who
seems
wants
to
to
be.
work on this.
Because engineers
And you're
need to
sitting
use
here
it in a different
spouting
way.
that you want to throw gravity out the window, but
No,
you
I
don't have
didn't
a
say
good
that.
replacement for it.
I don't have to replace it.
Actually, yes, you do.
No, I don't.
When
Actually, I
listen to me.
don't.
This is not a question of
No,
just
I don't have to
rejecting
listen to you
a
either.
theory in science. If you want to replace this based on hundreds of years of use and actual practical applications, then you need to step up to the plate and you need to do better than what you're doing now than spouting your vitriol and crap out of your mouth and trying to give this explanation, which holds no value.
That a rock will float to the bottom of a water, and by the way, that water
Not
is in
enough.
a container. And that rock, what it's doing is trying to reach its equilibrium. The only reason a rock will be at the top of the water is because someone put it there.
It's not
Define
equilibrium. Define equilibrium, bro.
Stop throwing words around. You have no clue what they are.
Well, you tell me what it is.
Define
Why is a
equilibrium.
rock at the bottom?
No, define equilibrium.
Define equilibrium.
No, I'm too dumb to do it. So maybe I used the wrong word.
We know
Okay,
that.
good.
But I want
Why
to
is
prove
the
the
rock?
point.
No, we don't need to prove that I'm dumb. Come on, man.
No,
You
no,
said
it's
it.
self-evident.
Everyone believes you. But why is that rock at the bottom?
I don't believe him. I know him.
It's floating.
Because it is acting on the forces, because it's subject to the force that are acting on it.
What force?
Oh, you know what it is.
No.
Okay, look at
the problem is
say it loud and proud, sir.
Gravity.
You're forgetting the fact that there's a buoyancy force acting on it as well.
The bending of a concept is why that rock is floating on the bottom? I don't
Why
think
is that
so.
rock floating on the water?
Gravity.
Well, I've seen rocks float on water. Pumice rocks.
There's
and
a
shit,
rock
the
floating
volcanic
on
rocks.
water.
That rock is floating on water, and it's made of denser material.
Yeah.
Probably over there, huh? Probably filled with
Rakia,
gas.
I don't even have to look.
I don't even have to look at the picture. Your dumb video that you're posting is probably filled with gas somehow.
I'm not rocket scientist. You don't need to shout at me. Rakia, are you familiar with the concept potential energy?
Oh, sure.
What does it mean?
You explain it, sir. I'm dumb.
So this is another evidence.
I've only heard it by passing by.
This is another evidence that shows you that you have lack of understanding of physical phenomenon. And
you don't know the half of it. I am way dumber than what you think, and still know a rock is at the bottom.
Okay, I know a rock is gonna go to the bottom from past experience, but what is making the rock goes into the bottom? That's the question.
Yeah, and you think it's gravity, right?
We have evidence
of a concept.
Gravity.
No, you have theories and calculations.
We have the Cavendish experiment. We have the Cavendish experiment.
What's your alternative theory to a Cavendish experiment?
Why is a downward Cavendish experiments produce predictional measurements,
I don't doubt
predictional
that.
Observation?
I'm not saying
no, hold on. Then you need to show me why it's wrong the experiment.
No, I don't.
Then this is
then
the
you
best
just accept
explanation
it. That's
we
fine.
have.
That's your religion. That's fine with me. I have no problem with that. I'm not debating you on that.
How do you then measure the velocity of a projectile on a certain angle, or horizontal, or even vertical? How can you measure the velocity of a projectile and where it will land? How would you do that? How would you do that? How would you do that?
You just use certain formulas, yeah. Momentum, force.
Okay. Those formulas, what kind of components and ingredients do they invoke?
Based on the calculation of what's called gravity.
And what is gravity?
You tell me, brother. And then we'll go to what causes it.
No, you need to tell me why gravity is this, because you can't use a formula and not knowing what this is.
You might need to come up with a cause of gravity before you invoke it on me.
So gravity is a force.
I have no clue what gravity is.
Gravity.
That's relativity.
Don't tell me what you think it is. Show me some gravity, bud. Give me the cause of it.
Just like we see the force of magnetism, we see a force and we call it gravity. No, we see a force because it's in a Cavendish experiment.
And like I said, I call it Nancy.
The Cavendish experiment shows that there's a force that is actually making two masses attract each other.
And you name it gravity. Yeah, it could be something else, right?
We shitting on it, Rocky. Tell us what it's supposed to be.
I've never seen gravity. I can tell you that. I've never seen it.
Sure you have. Look at the moon.
Nope. I'm looking around right now. I don't see any.
Do you have
Well,
any
to be
other
fair,
possibility?
you see the effects of gravity.
I'm being really fair. Yeah, the effects of what's said to
That's
be
a force.
gravity, but there's not a
The
cause.
effect is a force.
You have to have a
It is a
cause,
force.
right?
It is the cause as well.
What causes the effect is the cause? Now,
No, the
now
effect of
I'm
gravity
not
is a
thinking I'm the
force.
dumb one.
I mean, you are dumb, man. That's undisputed. But
No,
we're trying
without
to
a
explain
doubt.
to you why
Without a
gravity
doubt.
does exist. Now, I want you to rebuttal the Cavendish experiment.
Okay,
Because the Cavendish
God
experiment
does
shows
it.
the
Prove
effect
me
of gravity.
wrong. You say gravity does it. I can't prove you wrong. I say God does it. You prove me wrong.
Can you falsify your God?
Cannot. Neither can you.
What's the independent variable of God?
Himself. The effects.
Oh
Just
wow,
like your gravity.
that's not a non-circular
Just
argument.
like your gravity.
No,
you have
we
no
can't.
cause.
We do have independent variables.
You can say you do. The bending of space-time?
We can no. We can change the mass of the object.
No.
We can change the mass of the object, and we can measure the time. We can exclude other variables. We can exclude other variables like friction and earth and magnetism and electrical conductivity. We can all
now you're getting
exclude
somewhere.
those things. Yeah, and we have done it, and we measured the gravity effect. What's your rebuttal?
No. You're taking away all the known effects? What about the unknowns?
Do you have any reason for your assertion that there's any other unknown effect?
Yeah, because there doesn't seem to be a cause of what you're asserting as your cause. Yeah.
So how do you know it's God? What if it's gravity then?
I don't know. That's my faith. Your faith is gravity.
That's where we go. That's where we go. Reference to the best explanation, which is axiom razor. Where if you go to the simplest explanation and has much explanatory power. This is hold on. We're playing with your rules. We can make predictions, accurate predictions. We can measure it. We can observe it, and we can play with the variables. What can you do then? Nothing.
I can't. I'm sitting in my truck right now. I'm doing a lot. I didn't need gravity at all today.
Nice guy. You know what? Let's just apply Hitchens' razor to Rakia's position, and it just goes out the window anyways.
Another man.
What can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. You have nothing for your God. You have no proof, nothing. So it doesn't matter. It's out the window.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, to you.
Yeah, but at least with a Cavendish, there's something substantial.
To me,
there's a documented experiment which has been done.
My big G means everything to me. My model, my life, my everything revolves around my big G.
You have a model, Rocky?
Everything, yeah, my life, what I model myself out of. Everything revolves around my big G. Your whole model and everything you revolve around is your big G, which is gravity.
Rocky, are you telling me? Rocky, are you telling me you can see gamma rays and radio waves?
Never said that.
Wait, but they do exist, right?
Sure, I would say they do, yeah.
How do you know that?
I don't.
Wait, so you don't know they do exist?
Oh, whatever. You can call them whatever you want.
We see now.
I'm willing to concede one point. I'm willing to concede that it's hard to actually grasp gravity when you're sitting on the planet Earth and you're looking at everything fall at the same rate at the surface level. I get that because all we see is that there's an acceleration. There's a number we can met with that. I'm not talking about Cavendish. I'm sure you can understand it. I'm sure you'll agree that if we vary the mass and we drop something and we do measurements, that we get to this value.
Depending on the medium, yeah.
Like you're at least like that. You're at least that's. I think that's fair to we can agree on that, right?
You would at least say we agree. It depends on the medium, also, right?
Like whether it's an air or a vacuum or something.
Yeah, different mediums: air, water.
Well, the air has the effect of like a dampening on the motion. But okay,
so then yes, you would agree. It depends on the medium.
Yes, because that has another force, and we remove that. If we do it in a vacuum chamber, then we can remove that.
I've never seen a vacuum in nature. Never, not once.
What is this? It has to be in nature. Like, what is that? What is that point? What is the point of that?
Because we're proving reality where we live. Nature.
Do you see like uranium-235 decaying in nature?
I think all things decay. So if
do you see electrons?
Yeah, it's decaying.
But Rocky, that comment, I don't see vacuum. Like, come on, that's just semantics, okay?
Really, granite decays?
Yeah, I would say everything decays over time. Yeah.
You ever seen any decaying granite?
No, maybe it takes more time than I can see. Right? Have you?
Do proton decays?
Do what?
Protons.
I can't understand what you're saying.
Proton.
Oh, protons? Have no idea. Is that even real?
You said everything decays.
I've never seen one.
If it's not real, then Rocky, I don't know what the hell you and
Is
I are
that a
talking about
man-made
right
concept, or is that just something?
No,
that
man,
we see all day?
it exists, man. Don't worry about it.
Oh, it does?
Exists.
Oh, okay.
But you're living in your
Wow.
house
right
and in your
now.
truck.
Does water decay?
Do Smurfs decay?
I think Smurfs did decay. I don't think they're on TV.
Fucking Bender and his Smurfs.
Hey, Smurf racist, don't make me come over after you. Bloody non-Canadian.
Papa Smurf
Far northeast Australia.
Canadian Smurfs can beat up
Far
Australian
northeast
Smurfs.
Australian, thank you very much. Get it right.
Rocky, the point that I was trying to make with the gravity observation and like that, at the surface it is what it is. But when you're looking at the planetary motion, for me, that's where you actually really see the variation of gravity and the effect of gravity by looking at the motions of the planetary objects. Because how else? Because you can find relative density, whatever like that. I think is a ridiculous habit. But you tell me how you predict the motions of the planets using relative density, because how's that going to work?
Rocket, why?
I never tried to do that.
Well, Rocket has zero flexibility on the uniformity of nature. I don't know. I just don't know why we got to be like that.
Yeah, Don. Because whatever test that I do here in the lab, and it's an assumption. I admit that, but it's a scientific assumption that if I set up this experiment and then I go put it in a remote place in the desert that I'm not anywhere nearby or around, it's going to do the same thing. A tree is going to make a sound when it falls in the forest when nobody's around. It's going to make an impact, there's going to be some heat exchange, and it's going to make a sound. I don't need to be there to see that, because that's the uniformity of nature.
Okay, but let me give you an example. Like, you do the test in the lab, and then you want to go to the desert, and you kind of expect the same thing, but this is the first time you've been to the desert. So you learn, oh, there's a new thing, it's dry here. And obviously, but like, so when you're going to new zones,
Don, just stop.
You could expect things
under
to be
the same
different.
conditions, the experiments will be the same. Okay.
That's it. Why you? But I just want you to get it from like the flat earthers' perspective, right? If they're thinking that space is a new zone,
ridiculous. No. I'm not going to insult Rocket by saying that he has your perception, because he doesn't. Don, you have these ridiculous ideas.
Yeah, listen, man. It doesn't matter who has them. If I can have them, anybody could have them. So what I'm trying to talk about, the uniformity in nature, is when you go to a new area for the first time, you sometimes learn new things. It becomes uniform in nature then after that, right? But until you go there for the first time and learn it, you didn't learn it. And these people are challenging the authenticity of space travel, so that's why the argument would be.
And we have proof of space travel.
Can somebody translate what the hell Don said to English?
I don't know. He's speaking in the tongue of flat earthers. He's trying to make you understand what flat earthers' problem is.
Because Don, that observation was so deep, it went like miles over my head.
I don't know. Do you have a babble fish you can stick in your ear?
Guys, I'm saying uniformity in nature and new areas, right, can reconcile with each other. And if people are challenging the fact that you went to space, have not went to space yet,
this is just Don. I just tired of listening to you just screw things up on a repeated basis.
Well, what have I screwed up, bro?
Right now.
What?
Yeah, this is
Say
nonsense.
What? You're not saying anything. Say it.
Your hypothesis that a new area might cause
because I don't want
some
to.
kind
I
of
don't
a
want to just start
possible
swearing
change.
at you.
Your hypothesis that somehow going to a new area might change his whole test, although technically correct, is pointless. When you come up with this situation that happens in, where you find out that there's an area with more unicorn farts than elsewhere, then we'll address that. But at the moment, we don't have that situation. We have Cavendish that's performed all around the world, and it works. It doesn't not work when you go to one place. It doesn't not work when you go to the desert. It doesn't not work when you go to the top of a mountain. It works
They're
everywhere.
challenging space, though, man. They're challenging outer space. Like, that area
We have
is
proof
what
of
could
that.
have...
So Don, if you want
Guys,
to challenge it, do a better
you
job
don't
than
have
what
to
you're
prove
doing
all
now.
you want. I'm just trying to say you better be ready to prove it when you want to stand on these consistent nature things, and your opponents are saying, "Hey, you don't have any proof that nature is consistent up there." That's what they're saying to you.
Well, we do. We have witnesses.
Fine, and I know you do. Fine. Just saying.
So why are you saying? Why are you always playing white knight for this and bringing up these points?
Okay, because what happens is you guys make points as if like you can't understand it all, but it's like you can understand it. You do understand where they're coming from, and that's it. Like you should just be putting the proof on the table after that instead of doing this I'm scratching my head playing dumb type of thing. Like Rocket's like, there's uniformity of nature. It's like, yeah, duh, but they don't believe that you've been there. You know what I mean? Like
that has nothing to do with the uniformity of nature.
I get it, man. No, you're right. You never mind, dude. You bring it up with that point, right? You bring it up as if we've been there and there's uniformity of nature, right? That's how you're bringing it up. You're going, why would Cavendish and Jupiter orbiting the sun be any different? Because there's uniform nature. I'm going, they don't believe in Jupiter orbiting the sun. You get it? So if it's a new zone, then they're going to challenge that consistency by just saying, oh, there could be new rules up there. You haven't been there yet.
That is a violation of the uniformity of nature. You don't understand
undiscovered. That. Sorry, new, undiscovered. Well, new, not different. Yeah, new, undiscovered. Yeah. In addition, amending rules, stuff like that, man.
No.
It's in keeping with uniformity of nature.
Force equals ma is going to work here or on Jupiter.
See, that's what's funny. If you have different, you think it will, won't, don't you? Until you find out there's another phenomenon that could be dominating that effect.
Look, listen, Don, I said this is an assumption. It is in science we have to make certain assumptions before we can move forward. This is a base assumption. It has yet to be proven wrong, and it works. Because it's a simple thing like my laptop, which works here on my desk. If I fly to Asia, it's going to work in the same way. Because the laws of nature are the same here or there. There's no violations.
Yeah, but you might find
matter cannot be created or destroyed.
You might find
conservation happens. That'll happen whether it's here or whether it's on Jupiter. This is what I'm talking about. You are trying to bring in some psychobabble crap.
Remaining the same or increasing, so the Big Bang is going to collapse back upon itself and then explode again. Thank you.
Those are hypotheses, bro.
It may or may not. I mean, there's still a lot of TVDs out regarding the Big Bang Theory and the formation of the universe.
So yet again, we're waiting for flat earthers to present evidence or any proof that contradict with our belief and worldview, they say, and we're happy to see it and examine it and look at it. So far what they have provided, we have debunked, we have dismantled, and we're waiting for new stuff.
Shifting of the burden of proof fallacy.
But it's not.
Oh, here comes percent.
It is. Our experiences in life should tell us that we're on a flat and non-rotating plane.
Can you see radio waves? Can you see gamma? Hold on. Can you see radio waves?
Something else.
Can you see gamma rays? Can you hear high frequencies? Can you hear low frequencies? You are limited as a human being. You can't fucking sense everything in the world, dude. Get this in your
prove
head.
Your claim.
Can you see radio waves?
Prove your claim. You're making the claim.
That's I'm making the claim that you can sense everything.
You're saying we can see radio waves, like in terms of this.
No. You're strawmanning now. You're strawmanning now.
Hang on. Look, the overall thing is there are limitations to the human senses.
That's my claim.
Seeing things is not the last arbiter
That's
of
what it
what's
is.
truth.
Yes.
Our observations and our senses are the last arbiter of truth.
If that's the case, then science you and I would not be sitting on the internet right now.
Nope.
Science hinges on observation. How are
You
you
wouldn't
gonna
need
observe
to.
the,
It does.
You
how are you
wouldn't
gonna
need
observe
to.
And we built
what
tools
happens in your
which
experiment?
increase
How are you
our
gonna observe
perception
the
and what we can
results?
observe.
You
use
wouldn't
your
need.
senses. Everything depends on your senses.
You're
How
right, but machines can augment your senses.
how do you measure the surface
How do
area
we
of your
calibrate
room, my
machines?
friend?
Using our senses.
How do you measure current?
The point is that
You stick your
extraordinary
fingers
claim,
across the leaves.
positive claim is from the globe earthers.
A 9-volt
So
battery
then
in your
proof is
tongue.
on
I mean,
them.
that's that, but
Yeah,
no,
we
percent.
made
You
positive.
didn't answer my question. How do you measure current?
With a tool that you use with your
Uh-huh.
senses.
Oh, no, hang on. But
how do you see the
why do
volt
you
on
need
the
to use
screen?
that tool though? Because you didn't like that idea.
Now you're trying to strawman me. I've never said that. I
No,
never
it's not a
once
He
said
didn't
that.
strawman.
Tool.
You're
asked a
saying that
question.
perception is the holy grail of everything.
Yeah. How are we going to even use that tool with our
No,
senses?
no.
Our
The question
in the end,
is,
our senses
why do you
are
use?
paramount.
Hold
Yes,
on,
we
you're strawmanning
augment
again,
our
dude.
senses.
Hold exactly. Yeah, he's asking you.
How can we
why
even
do
tell
you
that we
need?
augmented our senses?
Hold on.
Using
Why
our
do you
senses.
need
We
to use
saw
that tool?
voltage.
How did we see it? With our senses. I mean,
Yes,
come on.
we augmented it.
If
Yeah, we
you guys are
augmented
arguing
it.
that your senses aren't important, then that's a losing battle.
You start off by
We use
saying that we
tools.
see the Earth
Never
as
said
flat
that.
after observation with our senses, and then you throw it out the window when it comes to things like I asked you a question: how do you measure current?
Our senses tell us the Earth is flat and non-rotating.
Not mine.
No, it
You make a
doesn't.
claim.
No, my experience
you make a
hasn't been
claim
that.
it's a heliocentric model, and it's a globe, and there's curvature, and axial rotation, and all that jazz. You have to prove it. That's how
My
it works.
senses
God
have
proved
the
it for us. God
tools.
proved the Earth is
Proving flat Earth
rotating for
as
us.
flat Earth, and an observably flat and stationary Earth is the default.
Okay, then we're having a difference in how we're observing things and what we're extrapolating from the experience. Okay, that's fine. Let's see how far that can be extended. You say it's round. Does this, truth that you're talking about, Dr. Bender or whatever, does that extend to other things? Are you seeing 8 inches per mile squared of curvature relative to, say, a laser? Does it extend to feeling movement? Does it extend to, I don't know, side-to-side curvature?
I just want to make sure your question is whether the curvature exists or no, right?
Well, we're talking about the same, horizon seen through 2 different eyes. So why don't we extend this truth and see how far it extends?
Not 2 different eyes. It's not 2 different eyes. Because
Well,
you
he's
understand
saying
our...
he sees
No, he's
curvature.
saying for the sake of argument, he's going to grant your premise. That's a globe. He's saying that we should be able to see that and appreciate it. Like in long distance observation, you should be able to see.
Really? Is he granting me a premise?
The Earth curving at 8 inches per mile squared, according to your model.
Grant you the premise and see how far it extends into other areas. Because if this is a truth, shouldn't it be able to extend further into other areas, into reality? How far does this extend?
Can you elaborate more? What do you mean by how farther it extends? In what context you're speaking of?
Talking about the
Okay, you
ramifications,
say...
consequences of it.
Yeah, you say you have a curved horizon. Does this extend to 8 inches per mile squared of curvature as the mathematical formulas would dictate relative to a tangent? Does it extend the side-to-side curvature? Does this extend to reliable optics that aren't curving and distorting the image? Does it extend to your feet where you can feel the movement of the ball? How far does this truth extend?
Well, why do you say distorted optics?
Well, we have seen fish eyes.
I've heard you say that plenty of times. You do realize you can calibrate that out of the lens.
I doubt that you can calibrate it all out, but I'd have to look into it.
Yeah, actually, you can.
By using what? Mathematical approximations? How exact are these formulas?
You use a camera model, and there are parameters that you can adjust to to take care of any barrel distortion or any other ambiguity in the model.
What do you mean parameters?
It's called calibration.
The moment I hear approximation or mathematical formula, I think math formulas that can only do so much. But I need to look into the literature.
Probably the wrong word, because as far as I know, you can only get rid of it with one type of lens, rectilinear. So that's not really calibration. It's not like you're taking your setup and calibrating it, like, you know, in terms of your hardware or software.
Every lens or any camera, it can be calibrated. They all have parameters in it that can be adjusted.
So you're going to take a curved lens, a regular lens, and you're going to calibrate it to account for the barrel distortion.
To some extent, you can, but with that particular type of lens, it may be more difficult to do so. I'm talking to like a regular lens.
Yeah, that's a regular lens is curved.
Most of the distortions at the edges is at the edge of the lens, anyways. Along the actual focal axis, you don't have anything, and it gets worse as you get away from there.
Yeah, man. If you can't get rid of barrel distortion, stick to rectilinear.
And even then, that's a lens that's curved, and by the logic of
like that, you still need to calibrate.
Yeah. And the thing is, the logic is you have a lot of curvature with a fisheye lens. It's probably a thick, you know, distortion-y lens. The logic would be less curved lenses would distort less, but still distort by consistent.
Let's not use a fisheye lens, Lemon. Can we disagree to that and just move on?
Well, the gold standard would be a pinhole camera, but you can't do a whole lot of focusing with it. I would love it if somebody would send up a high-altitude balloon with a pinhole camera well aimed at the horizon. That would be just grand.
Hey, Lemon, tell me about the lens on a pinhole camera.
Wow.
Just completely...
A pinhole camera just uses a hole to take the light in. No lens. So the only lensing we would have to worry about would be like refraction through the atmosphere or whatever. Yeah. Or inside of the lens as the air expands or does weird stuff.
So assuming we launch this balloon in a very, very high altitude with a camera of your preference, and we picked up curvature. Now, assuming this is what happens, what good thing is possibly playing in the camera that actually you're making the curvature appear?
If I saw actual curvature, okay, maybe I'd have to look into it. But otherwise...
Moving the goalpost again.
You guys already moved the goalpost with the ships on the horizon. We brought them back with cameras, and you said, move it out further to the point where the bottom is not coming back beyond the angular resolution of the camera, and you said, there's the curvature. So you guys already moved the goalpost with that. Sorry.
I mean, you can't pull a ship back over the horizon. That's nonsense.
But we did bring it back. The thing is, you said move it back further and go beyond the resolution limit of the optic.
Show me.
Exactly. Zoom in? Come on.
You were telling me you can use a telescope and zoom into a ship over the horizon, and you can bring it. You can see the whole thing before it started disappearing over the edge.
Depends on how strong your zoom is. Yeah.
I wonder sometimes what the percentage distribution of you being a troll and you being an idiot. I just sometimes wonder what that distribution looks like.
Well, based off of the percent of his name, it's
no.
Really
that's actually a legitimate thought that I had a few times.
Yeah,
even if percent was a troll, his points need to be addressed.
I'm still waiting for that altitude of that rocket, by the way. Have you figured that out yet?
You talking to me, bro?
Yeah, you.
Man, your material's old, bro. Like, think of a new
one.
I know, you've had weeks to do it. I mean, you'd think you could do a simple ATAN formula, but
bro,
we're still waiting.
Same evening, and I did it myself without even looking it up.
Wow. So being trolling then. So you're trolling then, dude.
So shows you that I still know a little bit from high school math.
So you're trolling then?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. What's up with you and your ears, bro?
Okay, just want to say that you're trolling, that's all.
Alright, go ahead and say it. Maybe say it 3 more times. Keep saying it, it'll be true. Right? That's the kind of argumentum.
Anyway, Lemon, what do you think about the Cavendish experiment as a proof of existence of a force We name that force gravity.
What I think about that statement? I think that statement is
I
ridiculous.
asked Lemon. You're not Lemon.
What was that?
What do you think about the Cavendish? What do you think about the Cavendish experiment as a proof and evidence that the gravity force exists?
I reinterpret it as ether flowing in and out of the object. Have you ever seen two stones in a river? If you separate the stones, the river will flow between the stones like ether space between these
Isn't this
Cavendish
the reification fallacy?
and indirectly bring the stones together.
No,
Isn't this
reification
reification
is
fallacy?
seeing something falling, saying that it's mass attracting mass in a downward vector, and then your only demonstration of it is maybe mass attracting mass in a sideways vector.
Definitionally, it's accurate. Definitionally, logically, it's accurate and it's correct. Because in order to have something, in order to have anything accelerate, change in speed, my friend, change in speed, there must be a force. Now, force are different types of force. Gravity is one of them. The gravity force, the gravity of pulling force, attracting force, it's one of them.
It's hypothetically one of them. It's one of them allegedly.
It's not hypothetically. Push a book on your table. The initial speed is 0. You get to a maximum speed. Hold on. Hold. This is a force. You push the book.
I'm not talking about the effect. When you say gravity, you're attaching a cause, right? We're not talking about the effect of things falling. We're not talking about relative density. We're not talking about downward, upward acceleration.
Our evidence.
You're talking about gravity, which is a cause.
Gravity and mass, you can't divorce them. It will always be there. And
again, you haven't shown that the downward acceleration is due to gravity.
Well, I have seen a Cavendish variation that you're talking about where they did it downward and there was more weight registered on the scale. But I would reinterpret it by saying you're absorbing ether space into the object and that is registering a different weight as ether is flowing into and or through and around the object.
So the ether that you're speaking of affect matter, right?
In the theory that I go with, that I'm formulating, yes.
Spacity.
So the ether, hold on. So the ether has physical property or no?
Percent fuck off of your space.
It does.
And what's the origin of ether?
The origin? I don't do materialist. To go beyond what it is, I'd have to go to God. I'm not a materialist who will square the circle by saying gravity generates mass, which generates gravity, matter generates matter. I am not a materialist. So you're not going to get that sort of explanation from me.
You don't get to decide for God what he wants to do or what he doesn't want to do.
So you want a materialist explanation? Okay, here it is.
Hold on. I'm still speaking. Okay. God created this universe the way he wanted it. Now it's on our duty, in our job, to try to understand this universe and explain it with sufficient, reasonable, powerful explanation. Now we have the gravity, we have a constant of gravities, we have a constant velocity downward, acceleration downward, which is the force of gravity. Okay, we can make accurate predictions. We use them in artillery, we use them in rocket sciences, we use them in ballistic. We use them in everything that actually requires velocity and motion. The vector down force of gravity always exists, and we can always make accurate predictions. And we have the Cavendish experiment that shows in a horizontal axis, okay, we can see the two masses attracting each other in a rate that actually give us the constant gravity. Now you need to tell me, how do you invoke the ether, and why do you think our interpretation of the experiment is wrong, since we have predictions, we have powerful predictions, we have accurate models that can explain everything in the universe, and not everything in the universe, everything in this earth. I want to be generous and conservative, okay? How do you invoke ether in here now?
Francis Nipper electrified the mass in the Cavendish experiment and got attraction instead of repulsion. It appears that gravity is an electrostatic electrical force anyway. To have electricity, you need to have a flowing field similar to an ether to get electricity and or magnetism in the most intuitive interpretations that I've heard of these experiments. So it appears that there's a better theory out there that is a bit more philosophically intuitive than, matter separated from other matter by vacuum space.
You made the biggest mistake in philosophy. You know what's the biggest mistake in philosophy, Lemon? if you're philosophically literate. You know what's the biggest mistake in philosophy?
What?
Can you give a guess?
That's 3 times, dude. You could have stated it by now.
Invoking intuition.
So let me get this straight.
You said a word no philosopher would say.
So let me get this straight. I am supposed to junk that philosophy in exchange for your philosophy that assumes that all senses have been accurately.
Bro, you're the last one that should be speaking about
philosophy. You asked me to junk one philosophy for another. Do you realize how incoherent that is?
Yo, this hypocrite, he's trying to chastise you about philosophy, Lemon, and this all day he's been appealing to incredulity.
Philosophy.
Affirming consequent. He's been doing law of
what is philosophy?
Non-contradiction. This guy's all over the place.
There are two adults speaking here.
We'll work through this together.
I'm fucking half those definitions properly.
Well, we're learning. We're becoming better.
I can teach you about philosophy if you want as well. Okay, let's see. How do you define philosophy? What is philosophy?
The love of wisdom and a coherent way to search for the truth in regards to this, if the truth is to be found, how it is to be found in the constraints of the philosophical paradigm, what tools would be available to find it, that sort of thing.
Okay, what is philosophical paradigm then?
Oh, materialism. Bumping particles that have no occult qualities that are hidden. All the qualities are finely defined, size, direction, force, motion, and those are the strict parameters within which we reach. Nothing occulted is left. An object doesn't fall because of its nature given to it by God as an occult interpretation versus saying it's falling down because this force is acting on it at 9.8 meters per second. Very mechanical versus occult. So the current philosophy is mechanical. No occult qualities from a god or whatever are allowed.
Well, it's not really mechanical. So when you say the materialism philosophy, they now call it more to be accurate, the physicalist view in philosophy, or the physicalist view in nature. In order to have anything in our world to affect anything else, it has to be physical. It has to have any property or gateways for something to affect another thing. This is our assumption.
That's the philosophy that you go with. And it's a philosophy that I go with to a point too, but I hold to a spiritual world that can choose to interact with us or not. It can pass right through us. We wouldn't even notice it.
A physicalist philosophy, let's assume that a spiritual world does exist. This will already automatically be included in the physicalist view. Do you know this?
No, yes. It can't be, because the spiritual world can choose not to interact with the physical object. If it can't interact, you wouldn't even know it was there.
I agree. I agree. But still, for them to interact with us, there must be a medium for them to... So for them to interact with us, there must be a medium of communication, of exchange of information for them to see us. We must actually propagate something for them to see, or they're sending something for them to actually repel from us to see. This is in simple terms. There must be a medium. And until we we can talk about ether then. Until then we discover that medium, it will fall automatically in the physicalist view. Automatically. Even the ether would fall in the physicalist view.
Okay, I will concede that. The only place where I diverge with you is that this spiritual world can stay in its dimension, in its floaty place, and not decide to interact with us. That's the only...
I also agree with that. I can give you that. I can concede with that. But it doesn't mean that when you're talking to a physicalist view like me, for example. By the way, I'm not an atheist. Okay, I'm spiritually, I have my own kind of beliefs and my worldviews. I don't believe that God doesn't exist. I have another definition of God and so on. So I'm giving you my background, so you don't think I'm with those occultist satanic group. So anyway, we go back to the concept of ether. Now, from the fairly aerial experiments they have done, I've read a little bit about it, and what I've seen is that the scientists who have made those experiments, they had failing results, they have inconsistencies, and they had no way to make any conclusion out of it. So if you can please provide me some type of experiments or evidence we have observed and measured that can actually make actual predictions and can prove the ether does exist.
The interpretation of the experiments appear to be the main issue, but the predictive experiment you're looking for is Michelson-Gale. Because in the Michelson-Morley, they did still have a slight ether drift. The problem was they didn't have enough ether drift to justify the movement of the Earth through the ether. So if you jump the assumption that the Earth moves. But in the Michelson-Gale, they got 97% of the calculated values that were expected with an ether swirling over the Earth, with one interpretation, or the interpretation that they went with, that the Earth is turning once a day on its axis.
And you're interpreting that, the variance of that, to be ether?
There's one interpretation that is available because they got 97% of the expected values. Now, they interpreted the values that they got within range to justify the rotation of the Earth on its axis, but you can just reinterpret it as saying the ether swirling gently over the Earth at 1,000 miles an hour around the equator. That was within the expected bounds of the mathematical experiment. It's just the interpretation that you're going to use for the numbers.
Okay, hold on. Okay, since you read, did you read their experiments and the new one that they have done in 2008?
I did not read that, no.
Okay, so I didn't even read it, but I'm willing actually to read it. I can understand some of it, not a lot of it, but I have people who can actually make me understand those things even more better. So the idea is, you said 97% of their measurements. What did it prove? Or what did it show?
For the Michelson-Gale, it showed within the mathematical values the expected ether drift, that whatever was happening, it was within 97% of what they were calculating. Now, what was happening, the interpretation is the real rub. Is it the spin of the Earth on its axis in the Michelson-Gale, or is it the ether gently swirling once a day over the Earth?
Okay, so since we have I'm speaking from a position of, I don't know those things, I don't know this topic, so I need maybe your help a little bit. So since we have two interpretation, can you tell me why you prefer this one than the other, and can you tell me their own interpretation of their own experiments, since they are the one who done it, and what are their conclusion they came with?
Well, I'll put the video in the chat, Einstein Closet Geocentrist, that goes over all of this stuff, but basically they were committed heliocentrists. So the interpretation that made the Earth motionless and at rest and at the center of creation, they junked that. So they went with the Earth on its axis, and by extension being one of several spinning, moving planets, they went with that interpretation on their philosophical grounds, based on me being a, hardcore religitard, and the fact that when you put the two experiments together, Michelson-Gale for the once-a-day rotation of the Earth with the Michelson-Morley experiment, they only jibe if at best you have an ether swirling gently over the Earth once a day.
So you're telling me they choose the other interpretation rather than your own interpretation because they are abiding by the heliocentric model? Is this because they're biased or something?
Every scientist has a bias, yes. So that's why all the cards need to be put on the table, whatever you believe, because that reflects how you are willing or unwilling to interpret the data. I'll put it in
I disagree with your statement that science has a bias.
I can conceive. Hold on, I can conceive of scientists being biases, but the question was, how can you tell me that those scientists were biased? From which conclusion? From which? Yeah.
I think Rocket Scientist was going to say something. He disagreed with science having a bias.
No, I
disagree with your position that science has a bias. Scientists, perhaps, but not science, because
thank you.
Everything is done to avoid that bias. The way the experimental setup is done, the way the observations are done, is to avoid any bias in the measurement.
But by the way, a point for Rocket. Hold on. I just wanna. By the way, no, it's an important thing. I just actually remembered it. By the way, if you want to hear something funny, it's like when you hear certain scientists doing certain experiments to prove a certain particle or to prove the existence of certain field of energy and so on and so on. Do you know that a lot of those scientists, argue with each other and attack each other ideas, and sometimes try to rebuttal each other ideas? Isn't this somehow an observation that they're not really biased? They're trying to give another interpretation.
Oh yeah, science is always in a conflict, fight with itself.
Exactly.
That's part of the scientific method.
I have a service announcement, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Zanuck, are you there?
Z-Dog.
Z-Dog, I would like to congratulate you on understanding my synopsises of things. And thanks for agreeing with me.
I seem to always agree with you.
Was exactly what you needed to help Flattened understand things.
So
when you make a dramatic entrance like that, I mean, it should be something.
I think I like the first.
That you're gonna
I think I like that first multicolored green and red and purple swirl. I think that's probably the best explanation. That really helped a lot.
Okay, public service announcement over. Back to talking junk.
I put a quick post on my synopsis with Flatten. If you want to read that, Leo, I tagged you on it. I found the problem.
You found it?
Yeah, I found the problem with Flatten's misunderstanding.
Okay, by the way, regarding the Michael Somori ether experiment, so their objective in that experiment is to see the deviation of the light path or the frequency difference in the light path or something, and why it's happening. And they concluded from their own results that it is not enough to correlate with the rotational of the planet itself. What exactly they got wrong?
Well, the two experiments taken together only have one consistent interpretation, according to the video that I put in the chat, Einstein Closet Geocentrist. They basically said that using similar instruments, they didn't have enough ether to have a consistent result in the first experiment for the basically 66,000 mile an hour speed of the Earth around the Sun, which translates kilometer-wise into 30 kilometers per second of ether drift in the first experiment, a greater speed than what they did get 97% within 97% of calculated values in the second test. That's not consistent because they tested at a lower speed in the Michelson gale, and they did get 97% of what they were trying to calculate using similar methods, just with a bigger interferometer and big pipes. Over like a mile. Yet they somehow got it at a lower speed. So with that inconsistent interpretation, you can't say we're hardly getting any ether at this greater speed of 30 kilometers per second, but at this lower speed for the rotation of the Earth, we're getting 97% of what we expect using a similar, design, a similar experimental setup, and we're getting, the 97% of the expected values at a lower speed. That's an inconsistent interpretation, unless at best the Earth is motionless, at rest, ether is gently swirling over it, or at best the Earth is not moving through space, but at best is just spinning in place. That's the only consistently interpreted.
So what are they using to measure the ether or the rotation of the planet in the Michelson-Morley experiment? What are they using? What kind of tools?
It's more of an experimental paradigm. Nobody put ether in a jar, just like nobody put space-time in a jar. It's an experimental framework to explain why it seems that light
what
goes
did they use?
lower this way, faster this way.
So they
use
an
experimental framework.
So does it work similar to the ring laser gyroscope?
Yeah, they split the light. It goes in two different directions. It comes back at the other end at a phase. So the experimental frameworks that they were working with was something is slowing down the light. So they said there's something in space slowing down the light.
It's taking energy from the light. Light doesn't slow down.
Well, it depends on how you think light travels. If you think light travels like a ripple in a pond, eventually that ripple will dissipate, or that ripple will be absorbed. So it depends on how you think light travels.
It's not that accurate analogy because the bond doesn't represent the space-time we live in, but fine. But still, like what they're actually measuring, like I've seen how the ring laser gyroscope works, and it basically sees the differences of two lasers parallel to each other, one increasing in intensity and the other decreasing in the intensity, and they put the frequencies on each other and they can measure the differences, the collapse or the buildup, and therefore they can actually calculate the what do you call it? The difference of acceleration of the planet rotation on its axis, and also the what do you call it? The rotation itself, the rotation speed. So if we have ring laser gyroscopes, and actually 2 months ago, I think they finished building the biggest ring laser gyroscope. It's with the 4 axioms for like better measurements and better accuracy. I'm gonna post a video about it. I'm looking forward for that tool to be used and produce accurate results. It's far more accurate than any ring laser gyroscope we ever made so far.
Yeah, the thing is, we have experimental frameworks by which we interpret the data, and most of the time, those experimental frameworks may or may not have direct proof or direct evidence. It's like using logic and reason to interpret these experiments, but can you empirically prove that logic and reason exist? No and hell no. But they are part of the process unproven.
We all have some type of self-justified propositions or axioms, you call them, to actually try to assume something, and you try to validate or falsify that assumptions, and therefore maybe you can know what that thing is. But so like the thing is, like, once we get to a point where Michael Mori, like, you and I haven't read the new experiment. Like, I think they have done experiment in 2008 and maybe in 2000, maybe, or 2007, I'm not sure. Then in 1995 or something, I can't remember the actual dates. Is it possible if you look up those newly done experiments, you might see different results? And the other
it's possible, but at this point, I'm just questioning the experimental framework by which they interpret the results, the biases that they bring in, stated and otherwise, and how their mind has been formed to interpret the experiment. That's what I'm looking at now with, this stuff, because the data can be golden. It may be the interpretation of the data that may not be. But we'll have to see. I mean, as a hardcore religitard, I believe God when he said that the earth is motionless on pillars on top of a watery deep and will not be moved, covered by a firmament, with the sun, moon, and stars within the firmament, under the waters above, under the heavenly throne of God. I think that more than likely the compasses are pointing toward the north, where Eden is, the magnetic mountain of God, Mount Meru, where all the compasses point right back to home.
There's no mountain there.
Hidden by lack of satellite coverage in the north and the south. Probably by people with a totally different agenda.
People have been there.
So what is the pillars connected to exactly?
What's the pillars? In the way that we think of pillars are usually on top of a foundation. So it's probably on top of some sort of foundation. But Moyak, you did say we were there.
Been to the North Pole lots of times, lots of different people. People vacation there. There's just tens of thousands of people.
Was it the magnetic North Pole or the geographic one? Because I'm basically assuming that the geographic one is fake and the magnetic one is real.
Well, the way you determine the geographic is easy. You go and look at the effects of how the sun spins around it and how the compass, not how the compass acts, but how the stars align around it, stuff like that.
You sure they're not missing maybe 50 to 100 miles to true geographic north missing?
From 50 to 100 miles
magnetic. You probably would, depending on how tall it is. That's true. But
all right, there's no mountain.
True north?
It's an ice cap.
Yeah, that too. But in the old maps, it does show a mountain in the middle, surrounded by 4 islands, with the 4 rivers of Eden going away from that mountain. Are you sure that they didn't give you a bad map or something?
Are you
highly unlikely?
By the way, Lemon, when you invoke like the Bible stories and theology, do you consider the possibility that a lot of the things you have read and studied and researched in your Bible theology and history, that it might be wrong or something? Like, not the history, I meant the creation of the planet, the age of the planet, the age of the universe or the space, whatever, how cosmos works and the ether. Is it possible that they're all wrong?
It's possible, but I trust God. I mean, even with the dating, they picked dating that made the earth artificially old because they want to make a lie out of the Bible. You can tell it. These English Royal Society occultists, they wanted to walk away from God. And so they picked this questionable dating method where I can club a seal right now, kill it right now, fresh. And it will date thousands of years. it will
did you
take
see an
thousands of years with the radiometric dating. It's
Okay,
bull.
Lemon. When did you see an atheist versus a Christian debate where the atheist goes and talks about do you believe the Earth is flat because you are a Christian? Have you ever heard this?
It's implicit. They don't come out and say it, but
I have watched tons of them, and I haven't seen single fucking atheist calling a Christian believer, "Oh, you're a Christian and you believe the Earth is flat." Nobody does this.
It's implicit. These Christian religitard, anti-vaxxers, Levitical, anti-science denier people that are backward. That is the implicit subtext of their criticism, and that's fine. Let's talk about what flows from this ideology and what flows logically from this ideology and what interpretations are available.
I mean, what about other religions and so on? Like, why would you think you're the perfect one? You're not even the first religion.
Well, the thing is, I'm one person. I can't follow 1,000 faiths. I have limited time, a limited life. I've been given, traditions from my forefathers. And really, if you break down the issue in a certain way, you can actually help make the discussion much simpler. Do you believe that there's one God or many? If you believe that there's one God, that gets rid of like 90% of them. The only games left in town, Judaism, Islam, or Christianity. That's basically it. If you can show another monotheistic one God religion, please.
There's another one. I don't know the name of that religion. I think it's a religion in Persia. They also have a one God, a monotheist God, and it's even older than the Judaism.
It's Zoroastrianism or something like that.
It's a monotheist religion. That's the point.
But it helps narrow down things right there. Now we can start getting down to the nitty gritty. What is God's nature? What did He do?
I don't want to deviate a lot from the point, because every religion has their own interpretation of what it's God, what's the traits of God, what God looks like. The Islam, what God looks like is different from what Christianity God looks like. There's a different of attributes. There's a different way of dealing with punishment and dealing with people, forgiving people, and so on and so on.
What's different?
I'm talking about the different teachings of every religion. They have different rules. They have different worldviews. Otherwise, there's no need for it to be Islam or Christianity or Judaism. That's not what they claim. That's not what they say.
No, that's what Islam claims.
Does Islam say that Jesus Christ is God?
No, not Jesus Christ.
Do you believe
God,
is Jesus Christ a God or no? Is Jesus Christ a God or no?
God, you're a Christian.
No, they lost the way. That's what they think.
So it's not a God.
No, it's the same God, but it thinks that Christianity got tainted.
It doesn't work like this.
With the theory of Trinitarian. But it still maintains it's the one same God. The Abrahamic faith has one God.
Okay.
One God and three persons that are all part of the same Godhead. And they back that up by saying, in the beginning, the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. So it appears that at the beginning there was God and the Spirit, the Holy Ghost, whatever, hovering over the waters. That's at least two persons right there in the Trinity. The third person is revealed in the New Testament, which says, in the beginning the Word was God and was with God. So that means that at the beginning of creation there are at least persons.
That's not even Christian theology, because there's a lot of sects in Christianity that aren't Trinitarian. There's a lot of non-Trinitarian sects in Christianity, so it's not like a strictly speaking Christian theology. And that was after, like, in the Nicene Council was introduced, and that's also where Islam believes that Christianity went wrong. They identify.
I know. I'm familiar with that one. But what I'm trying to say is that there are different understanding of how the world came to be. There are different intentions for the world, how it came to be. And the thing is, like, what we use with our scientific method and our observation is we're trying to set foundational rules. We're trying to observe regularities to be able to make predictions in the future that helps us in life and to expand our knowledge as well.
Yeah, our understanding. The exact opposite of what you were doing before when we were having the God kind of debate, because I was telling you
we had no God debate.
No,
we were just talking. We had no God debate.
No, I mean before, like hours ago, because I was talking about how
I wasn't talking hours ago.
Yeah, you were with Brahmi and them.
Ah, you mean that one? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
I thought
the
you
whole
meant
point was
lemon.
that, you know, if you look at how it is in our world and stuff, you have the law of causality, and you look at, and you try to apply that, and you know, you find this consistency in everything. There's this law of causality, and if you know, apply that, then you have to. The only deduction is that it doesn't apply for the very first cause, right? And that's the rule breaker, basically. And now you're trying to say that you do adhere to it, so you're not making sense, bro.
Hold on, I didn't say I adhere to it. I didn't say my God is the same as your God. I didn't even specify the trait of my God.
When did I just say that right now? Do you have comprehension?
You adhere. No, you said you adhere to it. What did I adhere for?
No, as in like one adheres to causality in everything except the first cause, right?
I didn't say that. I don't adhere to it, no.
Really? So you don't adhere to causality?
No, I adhere to causality, but I don't adhere to the idea that you need to end causality.
Well, causality means there's a beginning and the end, bro. That means that everything has to have a beginning. So there has to be a beginning.
No, it doesn't mean that.
So you're completely contradicting what you just said a minute ago, whereas you seek consistency.
Define me causality. Okay, help me. Define me causality.
Every effect has a cause to it. Causality means something must be in place for something else to exist. Without that cause, it would not exist. Like, if God didn't decide to create us and be the cause for our creation, we wouldn't exist. If we didn't decide to be the cause of chopping down that tree and turning it into a book, that tree would stay a tree without the cause, us chopping it down and making it into a book.
Why does
it would just continue along its path.
Why does it need to be a God?
Well, because of this logical axiom from Parmenides, a Greek philosopher. He said, "Being."
I don't know what this means.
Oh, there was a philosopher named Parmenides from the Greek world or whatever. He said, "Being can only come from being." So beings give rise to other beings. Have you ever seen a non-being give rise to a being, or rather, nothing give rise to something? Or do you usually see something give rise to something else?
Those are not equivalent. Being are not something from nothing. And when he said, according to what he said, is that being always arises from another being, I can concede of that. But then you made the analogy, can something come from nothing? Absolutely no. Something must be coming from something. But you can't make this analogy.
They're not exactly the same.
Split it and go to the final point before we get philosophically lost. If being can only come from being, then a being gave rise to a being, gave rise to a being, all the way back to either one of two logical options in that intellectual conception. An eternal being like God that gave rise to other beings, and or that being a personal transcendent God, or an eternal impersonal pantheism. Those are the only two logical options in that logical conception in which beings give rise to other beings.
So two things real quick. He was right, Lemon, when he said that an inanimate object, something that's not being or like living, that isn't nothing. You know, they're different. That's
in the context of this discussion, it doesn't matter.
Conceded.
In the context of this discussion, it doesn't matter whether it's a person, whether it's a person.
Let me finish, Lemon. Let me finish. So you're right in that, you know, being has to come from being, and he conceded that. So you're like what you said just a second ago about those, you know, that if you follow it down, that's correct. I would say though, I would disagree with your pantheism argument, because even that requires, you know, it's like, you know, that's the infinite kind of, you know, eternity basically.
So
right?
the question
came from itself. Yeah.
So the question becomes, what's the nature of this being? Is it a personal transcendent God, or is it an impersonal pantheistic universe? What is the nature of this eternal being?
Yeah,
what do you think it's a being in the first place?
Oh, hold up real quick, not to hijack your conversation, but I would say that
you can, man. Please speak. I don't want to have one-to-one. I want more people to join.
Okay, so for the pantheism argument that Lemon's making, we would have to concede that we are God, and I don't think we're justified in saying that at all.
By definition, no. It's not as we observed something as God and then we said, "Oh, I am God." It's not like we observed a donkey and I'm donkey. No. By definition, it's doesn't work because we define God in a certain way, and we define humans or beings like us in a certain way. We can't be gods by definition.
Yeah, okay,
but
well,
that's only in
not God then. Let's
pantheism.
say with the supernatural being that, you know, that uncaused cause. He's saying that, you know, for maybe it's possible that that uncaused cause came and it was like the universe and it continued to exist and we are part of the universe, so we are part of that supernatural being.
So let me tell.
Antithetical,
Okay.
really, because where we have a natural world, so we can't be part of that the supernatural thing. And if we are part of the supernatural thing, we would have more knowledge as to, you know, how to create and come from nothing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So, are you familiar of the people who were worshipping pantheism, and when monotheism came, they told them that what you were worshipping is wrong and this is heathenism and you're absolutely lost people? Exactly, the pagans people. So my position now as, you know, and what do you call it, a humble intellectual person, is that I understand my limits. I understand that I am a limited individual. I don't have omnipresent power or knowledge or whatever call it, those superpowers. I don't have them. I have limited knowledge. I make a lot of mistakes. Sometimes I hallucinate. Sometimes I'm delusional. Sometimes my hormones fuck me up and I get in a very huge anger. Sometimes, very rarely.
You get that checked out, bro.
Yeah. But the thing is, I'm telling you that for me as a person, what I do is, it's like, in a simple way to put it, I follow evidence, I follow information, I try to see what is logical. Now I understand when you provide the idea of infinite regress, I don't agree it's fallacy, but I understand why. I don't even like it. Like, I don't like the idea of infinite regress. I'm just saying that with all of my bottom of my heart, I don't like it, but it is a possibility, and, you know, I still don't like it. But listen, that doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. You know, I have my own definition and idea of God, and I believe in a specific type of God. You know, it's a little bit different than your own gods. You know, I know so much less of him than you guys know of your own God. But the point is, I'm always open for new information, for new evidence. Who knows? Maybe something, maybe in the next 100 years, 200 years, there's a huge paradigm shift that actually makes us question our history, our physics, our reality, our consciousness. And that's when you need to actually be humble enough and to have the humility to actually change your worldviews. And this is where I am. You think, by the way, you think I would reject that the idea of a God like Jesus Christ or like Allah or whatever Jesus believe in? I would reject it just because I'm satanic? Of course not. Who would in his sane mind reject heaven? Nobody would. But because I have reasons not to believe in it, it's just like, you know, I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm trying to tell you that this is my limited knowledge. This is what I know, and I don't want to speculate that much.
And some of it is, you know, perfectly smart people that just choose, you know, not to believe. You know, maybe they want power. Maybe they're mad at God because of something that happened in their life. Or maybe their mind refuses to submit to a truth that they can't wrap their mind around. Some people, you know, need to check themselves and ask themselves, why am I choosing to believe this? Is it because there's no evidence? And or I don't like where the evidence leads. You know, I believe in a God whose son is Jesus Christ. You know, I do hold to the Trinitarian view, although there are Christians who are trying to, you know, go even against that. And I believe that God reveals the meaning of life and history through the Bible, you know, through the prophecy and the history written in his revelation, and that God loves us and he can be trusted. And if it's in his will, he can guide us to all truth, irrespective of even scientism. He can guide us to ultimate truth.
My philosophy is a little bit different. I would say every individual has the capacity to understand the real meaning of life. And I can't tell you what's the meaning for life for you, but I know what is the meaning of life for me, and I'm solid about it. I'm very strong about it. I have my own will and so on. So those things are kind of irrelevant to the point that we need to adhere to a certain ideology, to a certain worldviews. I can share my sadness. I have emotions. I have empathy. I want to do good in the world. I don't want to steal. I don't want to lie. I don't want to hurt anybody. Those are fundamental things that when I became conscious, I arise to. I didn't read to read a Quran. I didn't read a Bible. I didn't need to read any of other books to tell me what I need to believe in, what I need to understand. Those things were understood to me by myself. I had experience